With World of Warcraft Classic looming, Blizzard are on the cusp of what could be one of their largest ever events. Gamestop have grim news, as do EA's DICE, who have had to cancel a Battlefield 5 feature. A bad look for the studio right as Modern Warfare has had its successful gameplay preview. Also in the news, something rather amazing for games preservation. We've heard more about Cyberpunk's design philosophies for the world, and something that we've waited for a very long time indeed. Mount and Blade Bannerlord finally has a date. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Roundup, our twice per week gaming news show where we keep you up to date with everything that you need to know. This week a little bit early because we are clearing some time for WoW Classic. I'm back from Gamescom, so we're pretty much back in schedule, so with that, let's get right into it, and we'll start off with WoW Classic. As of the time that this video will go up, it pretty much about to launch, and it's a very, very interesting project indeed, being so community driven, really existing because people campaigned for it for an extremely long time. But now as we get closer to launch, it's been quite interesting. Ever since opening up character creation earlier on this month, Blizzard have been adding servers, recently adding I believe 9 servers between EU and US in one wave, with that going live on today the 26th, but even before that they've still had to add more and more servers, and that is even with their layering technology being in place to manage populations on day one. Basically, the plan is that through layering, the servers will be able to support truly massive numbers of players, but with Classic having a lot of initial hype, they do expect loads of people to drop off, so the idea is that essentially, after a few months, they'll be down to the stable populations for the servers, and at that point, there will be no layering. But even at that, WoW Classic servers are pretty much seeming like they're going to be dwarfing actual vanilla World of Warcraft servers, which is rather interesting as it will make the Classic experience, in a way, a bit different from the vanilla one, given there's just going to be so many more people. Ultimately, a part of that is just that server technology has came on a lot. We can support far more players with far less of a performance degradation. So overall, with Classic, I'm expecting to see pretty insane numbers on Twitch. I'm quite sure the World of Warcraft will dominate Twitch, especially with Popular Guild Method running their Race to World First, an event that previously has dominated Twitch statistics, which is pretty impressive given how live World of Warcraft isn't exactly the hottest property right now. I think it's going to be very good for the game, for both versions of the game. I think it'll be good for Blizzard, and I think it'll be good for the community. Certainly, I think that this is creating waves beyond the core World of Warcraft audience that will bring a lot more people in. Of course, the first channel that I did, the larger channel of the two channels that we run, is the World of Warcraft channel, so there's definitely, I can say, a lot of excitement from the audience over there, and I think that's really going to spill out into general gaming. Now that we've covered something positive and fun, well, it's time to get into something a bit more grim. So Gamestop, a company that seemingly can't catch a break, has, well, job losses. They have spent the past year trying to get acquired, but to no avail. They're just not a hot asset, their stock has been dropping hard, and that's right in line with them just having a bleak outlook. Now GameStop, as we've covered in previous episodes, do have a plan. They want to be more community focused, they want to be dealing in esports, general gaming culture, turning their stores into hubs, but from an outsider's perspective, I think it's quite hard to see that work at their current scale, given the fairly simple fundamentals. People are shifting digital, not physical, and digital kills pre-owned, so they really are losing on all fronts of the most, well, important aspects of their business. Sure, gaming merch is like 10%, but it's just 10%. Now, there's more grim news for them. They've announced the layoff of over 120 staff, that's 14% of staff at company HQ and other offices, and this also includes a large number of the Game Informer editorial staff, reportedly almost half of them. They say that they need to reduce costs in order to be in better alignment with their future goals, and you know, I've seen some people say that that is just an excuse to brutally lay people off, and in the case of maybe Activision Blizzard, you could make an argument there, but being realistic, this clearly is a company that's in strife that do need to work things out. GameStop is floundering. After failing to be purchased, which was their ideal plan, they've been trying to change directions for the modern market, but that change seems to be slow, and the chances of it working seems kind of grim. Their stock has fallen from around $45 5 years ago to just $3.6. Ultimately, I do think this is a case of a business doing poorly, and I don't think anyone is surprised here. Moving digital is in the best interests of publishers and platform holders, GameStop are just going to be cut out of the market, and they thus far have not been able to keep up with that. And moving from one grim topic to another, we've got Battlefield 5, another example of a live service gone wrong and of problematic development. DICE have announced the cancellation of their competitive 5 versus 5 game mode, something that, as a long-time Battlefield player, I've got to be real with you, I don't think that many people actually wanted. So they've cancelled it, saying that they will be refocusing on core game content, and that is absolutely what DICE need to do. Battlefield 5 has been a bit of a mess. Just look at Al Sundan, which the community now calls Al Sundan because it's been soon for a while. That's a map that sort of is released with the small version of it, but its proper conquest version has been delayed for, well, months. And being real, that's a game that cannot afford delays like that. So overall, with this game mode, the 5v5, DICE made a bet, it clearly did not work out, and being real, I think if they listened to their players, I think they would have known that it just wasn't going to work out quite a while ago. People play Battlefield for that scale and authenticity, they don't play it for a competitive COD-like experience. DICE chasing that, especially with their sort of esports focus, I think it was kind of odd. I don't think Battlefield should attempt to be COD, I think if it does, it will lose. It should try to be Battlefield, to reinforce what makes it unique, and that's why I'm glad that this has been cancelled and that they're focusing on core content. And they're going to need to work hard because Modern Warfare is coming for them. Activision are coming for them. It even has a large-scale game mode that could compete with aspects of Battlefield. I'm certainly thinking about the Operation Locker or Metro-style maps. It seems like Modern Warfare could do those. Overall, though, it's sad to see this game be in such a mess. It's full of bugs, it's got late content, and often when things are, arrive that are good, like game modes, they're taken away, just like the recent Outpost game mode, which really was kind of sad. Overall, it seems like this is what you get if you publicly commit to a live service, but don't take your studio's capabilities into account. This is, of course, speculation, but it seems to me like they stretched themselves too thin, got off on the wrong foot, and, they're now on the back foot, and they're just paying back all of the technical debt that they accrued in scrambling the game into existence. I think, as with Anthem, it's clear that EA should have just had the stones to keep this game in the oven for a little bit longer so the developers had the time they needed to make what they wanted. After all, is a live service game, is that not all about playing the long game and not just rushing it out to get the short-term quarterly bump? And then on the topic of live service games that do involve shooting, we have Modern Warfare, which just had its open alpha. I mean, really just a gameplay preview over the weekend. And being real with you, it was very impressive. I played a good few rounds, and just the quality of what I saw there was really top-notch. So the preview covered the game's 2v2 mode. It is a first to 6, and there are 2 variants. There's ones where all players get the same random loadout for a round, for 2 rounds, and then there's another one where the guns actually spawn at fixed locations on the map, which is very old school and very much something that I like. They're 2 very different twists in the same game mode. I think they're both really quite great. Overall, though, I just loved it. The pacing of the combat especially, things like time to kill, time to die, the run speed, animation speed, all that stuff just felt right. Reining in melee range, that was another really good move too. And the guns were especially good, and in a rather uncharacteristic way for the series, recoil felt a lot more impactful, and overall, the game is just more slow and weighty, and I think it's working out very well indeed. Now, of course, it still is a relatively fast game, it just is noticeably slower than, say, Black Ops 4. Visually, it looked great, even though I was stuck playing it on a base PS4. I imagine in PC or a PS4 Pro or whatever, it would look a lot better. What I did notice the most, though, was the sound design. It was incredible, particularly in how restrained it was. Guns didn't have that big artificial boom in their bass, and I really appreciated that. They sound real, and the spatial mixing was fantastic, and that was me just hearing it from a television. I'll be very interested to see what it's like on some of the higher-end audio gear that we've got here. Moving over to the new game mode, well, matches in that just felt great in terms of the pacing. It was a really snappy game mode, very high stakes as well because of the increased personal responsibility that comes with the smaller gameplay format, and that really does lead to a lot of tension as you get into the later rounds. And overall, I was just surprised by how gripping I found those matches to be. And this stuff all sounds brilliant. This absolutely on paper seems like a game I want to throw my money at, but here's the problem. You've got to take it in the context of the series, particularly the microtransactions of Black Ops 4. I can't trust Activision. It's as simple as that. I don't want to pay full price for a game to just have it be turned into a freemium post launch, and then to have that fact be repeatedly shoved in my face. And okay, sure, freemium is maybe not the right word technically because you do have to pay to get in, but you know, all the free-to-play feeling microtransactions, and I think a lot of those will feel even more out of place in this game, given its very gritty, authentic, and critical tone, something that is very different from the, I suppose, just the absurdity and madness of Black Ops 4. So definitely a fine line for them to walk. I can see them having an amazing game in their hands and basically just ruining it with the business model. And with that covered, let's hop over to Quickfire. So, Tailworlds have announced that Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord will enter Steam Early Access March 2020. And this is not just another game announcement. This is a game announcement that an extremely passionate community have been waiting for what, 7 years, maybe more? I mean, Mount and Blade Warband, the predecessor, that's an incredible game, one that can then be extended by countless high-quality mods. Mount and Blade really just nailed its fantasy so well, and seeing its successor actually be on the horizon, well, that's really exciting. Now, when I was at Gamescom, of course, I was there for developer work, I was talking to publishers, but I did speak to a journalist who had been there a few years and just said that they've been iterating quite heavily, Tailworlds had, on the Mount and Blade demos, so we're yet to see if this game will be the product of 7 years of smooth development, or if it will, you know, barely manage to stumble out of development hell. Probably somewhere in between. Making games is quite hard after all. But still, Tailworlds have been a solid dev in years gone by. They've been, you know, I think pretty honest in everything that I can remember from them, so I'm more than willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here, and I'm absolutely excited. Moving on then, CD Projekt Red have said that the map of Cyberpunk 2077 might be a bit smaller than Witcher 3, but that it will be more dense. And this is great to hear. It immediately conjures up the memory of Deus Ex Mankind Divided's Prague. Now look, Mankind Divided, well, it did just feel like it got cut off in the middle. It felt like there should have been a lot more there and had a lot of issues, but one of the best things about it was its main location. Prague was incredibly well designed and it was full of detail, and not just set dressing, it was gameplay. It really felt like a city. Now, if the city of Cyberpunk, if it's going to be, you know, designed in that manner, I think that's going to be great. Now, that is always the type of design that would work well for a game like Cyberpunk, but it's just good to hear the developers talk about it, and it's nice to see people just say, yeah, our map is smaller, but it's actually more dense and there's more things in it. I think that's a really good thing. We've had so many games that are absolutely massive in terms of their map size, but where there's just no depth to it. And I really do think we should be calling for smaller games, or smaller game worlds that are more considered, have more things to do, have more interactions. I think that is what creates the emergent moments that people really remember, not just, you know, looking at a really big field. And then finally, we've got an excellent update for games preservation, an open source Flash emulator. Now this one move, this will mean that thousands upon thousands of Flash games that dominated the web in the early 2000s, or just off 2000s in general, that those games are not going to fall prey to Flash falling out of favor. And this is especially nice because those are games that I think, you know, they're sort of understated sometimes, but they do have a large historical significance because for many people, you know, they were a gateway into gaming. They were free, they were easily accessible, they really did a lot for gaming, and a lot of them existed before the current sort of indie wave was really a thing, you know, since Braid. That's where a lot of that early creativity was sort of fostered, and a lot of developers came out of that. So it's brilliant to see that that era of gaming is actually going to be preserved. Anyway, that is it for this episode of The Roundup. If you're interested in the WoW Classic stuff, be sure to check out my other channel. Of course, it's a World of Warcraft channel, so we'll be doing a lot of coverage for Classic over there. And yeah, if you're interested in what's going on, you may like that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and with that, I'll see you next time.